A truck carrying 10,000 cans of red paint killed me, and I woke in another body while 500 young mages laughed at my name. The burning mannequin in front of me had just turned bright pink when I touched it, yet its flames still tried to roast my eyebrows. Death had improved my audience, but not my career. Combat damage, 0, a stone lion announced above the arena. Candidate Hadion has failed. Foreign memories struck me. I was a scholarship student at the Royal Arcane Academy. I owned 2 uniforms, 7 copper coins, and a talent that changed the color of anything I touched. In a world of fire and lightning, it had the military value of a decorative spoon. Master Malden stood beside the scoring pillar, broad and gray-haired. The target is still standing. Leave the platform. The rules allow a utility assessment when a talent causes no damage, I said. Page 42. A tall student in a red dueling coat rose from the front row. Rurik's family supplied the Academy's fire crystals, and their golden furnace covered his chest. My team needs new uniforms, he called. Let Hadion make them pink. 500 students laughed. Malden glanced at Rurik's crest. Passing me would preserve my scholarship. Failing me would free one funded seat for a paying student. The combat faculty does not reward party tricks, Malden said. Appeal denied. The pillar flashed gray. My name fell from rank 412 to rank 500. My scholarship, dorm room, and meals vanished with it. Students created little illusions of my falling name and cheered each time it hit the floor. Rurik blocked the stairs and offered me a white handkerchief. Make it red. That is the closest you will come to fire. I turned it crimson. He dropped it into a brazier while the judges watched. That is where useless colors belong. The cloth burned. As its red vanished into the flame, something pulled behind my ribs like a locked door shaking in its frame. I remembered the feeling and walked away. At the Class Awakening Hall, failed students received support paths. The crystal made one boy a shield keeper, and another a potion brewer. Even a boy who summoned damp sand became a fortress mason. Only one gray spark remained for me. Color collector, Malden announced. The hall erupted. The class could store pigment, identify shades, and make one object painfully bright for 3 seconds. Rurik leaned over the balcony. He can defeat monsters with bad taste. Refusing meant permanent expulsion. Malden expected me to beg, but there was no second choice. I accept color collector. The token cut my thumb. Blood entered the crystal, and the locked door behind my ribs opened. A cold voice told me the public class was only a seed. Its first true path was element painter. Its second was property thief. Its final throne was color emperor. They were stages of one lineage and one ability. Chromatic transfer. The rule was simple. Color carried property. Remove a color, and I removed the property bound to it. Place that color elsewhere, and the property moved with it. Red carried heat. Blue carried cold. Green carried life. Every mage learned that an element could never lose its property. My class broke that law with one touch. Did your grand class reveal the secret name of Beige? Malden asked. Not yet. I pocketed the token and left while the hall laughed. The academy removed me from the dormitory before dinner. My belongings fit inside one blanket. I found shelter in the abandoned West Art Building. Its window was cracked and its roof leaked, but outside had weather. I lit a short candle on the floor. The voice identified 20 units of red in the flame. My storage held 100 units. Taking all 20 required 4 seconds and 10 of my 30 mana points. Numbers were more useful than laughter. I held my left hand above the flame. Take the red. Pain bit through my fingers. Red light stretched into my palm. I gained 5 units each second. At 4 seconds, the red vanished completely. The candle still burned, but its flame was almost transparent. I lowered a scrap of paper into it. The paper did not catch fire. I pushed one finger through the pale flame. It felt no warmer than breath. 20 units of red rested inside me. The candle's heat had moved with its color. I laughed once. It was a quiet sound. I had found the kind of joke I liked. The door opened behind me. Please do not burn the building, a woman said. The roof is already trying to kill us. Elowyn stood there with a paint box and a loaf of bread. A green ribbon tied her dark hair and blue paint crossed her cheek. She was a second-year art student who used this room because the academy valued broken chairs more than magical paintings. Her gaze moved from my hand to the transparent flame. What did you do? I changed its color. No. She set down the bread and knelt beside the candle. You always changed appearance. That flame has stopped bending the air. She held a metal palette knife through it. The blade remained dark. Elowyn looked at me, not with pity and not with amusement. You took the heat. She was the first person in this world to say it. I picked up the palette knife. The voice said the iron could safely hold 10 units for 1 minute. I pressed my thumb to its flat side and released half the stored red. Crimson spread through the metal. The knife glowed. Candle wax touched it and hissed into smoke. Elowyn leaned closer like a hungry cat at an open pantry. You put the heat into the iron. 10 units for 1 minute. I have 10 left. She grabbed a clay tile painted with a red apple. Try this. I touched the painted apple and transferred 5 units. The apple began to steam. The green leaf beside it remained cool. Ilawan's eyes widened. The property follows the selected color, not the object. That was the first consequence I had not considered. I could place different properties on different parts of the same target. A sword did not need to become entirely hot. Only its edge did. The discovery cost me the rest of my mana. Gray lines appeared beneath the skin of my palm and my knees weakened. Eloin caught my shoulder before I met the floor. The cold voice explained the price. Moving 1 unit cost half a point of mana. Pulling too quickly damaged my color channels. If those gray cracks reached my heart, my own properties would begin to fade, so I was not invincible. I was a cup with an interesting hole in the bottom. Ilawan cooled my hand with wet cloth and shared her garlic bread. Rurik challenged the failed students to a public retest tomorrow, she said. He wants to display his new fire technique. How public? The entire first-year faculty. The ranking pillar will record it. Is there prize money? She stared. You can steal heat from fire, and your first question is about money? My second question is whether you have more bread. She handed me the other half. The challenge began at sunrise. 300 students filled the arena. Malden and 2 examiners guarded the scoring pillar. Rurik had invited everyone who saw me fail. That was considerate of him. He would attack an armored target, then a failed candidate could try to exceed his score. Victory paid 30 silver coins, 1 fire crystal, and a ranking review. Defeat meant serving his team for 1 month. Nobody volunteered. Rurik stepped onto the sand in his red coat. Hey, Dion, he called. I prepared this chance for you, unless Color Collector is busy collecting excuses. The crowd chanted my name because they wanted the same joke again. I entered. At the rear gate, Eloin raised the palette knife. Its red had faded exactly as predicted. Rurik pointed toward a rack of academy weapons. Choose carefully. Perhaps there is a paintbrush. I selected a plain wooden practice sword. The crowd roared. Malden frowned. That weapon has no enchantment. I noticed. Rurik formed a roaring fireball. The crystal measured 60 red units and a projected impact of 180 points. He fired. The fireball struck the black iron mannequin. When the smoke cleared, its armor remained whole. The pillar announced 186 points. His friends shouted. Malden applauded first. Your turn, Rurik said. Try not to give the target a pretty hat. I walked toward the mannequin. Candidate must begin from the marked line, Malden said. The line was 20 paces away. My wooden sword could not reach the target. Rurik spread his hands. Did you misunderstand the rules? No, I was checking the distance. Then begin. Fire formed around me. Flame left on the mannequin rose into a cage around me. Rurik called it battlefield pressure, and the judges allowed it because his rules did not forbid it. It was a trap written by people who owned the ink. The crowd counted down from 10. If I failed to attack before the count ended, Malden could record a surrender. I placed my left hand against the wall of flame. Rurik grinned. That is real fire, Collector. I know. I took the red. The spell fought harder than the candle. Heat tore into my palm as I took 10 units each second. Gray cracks climbed toward my wrist. At 30 units, the cage faded. At 40, the counting stopped. Every red flame became transparent. Heat vanished from the arena. The fire cage still moved, but it brushed my coat like cool wind. 300 students fell silent. Rurik's smile remained on his face for 1 lonely second. Then it dropped. That is an illusion, he said. I stepped through the colorless fire. The front row recoiled. Malden cracked the scoring table beneath his hands. The pillar announced that Rurik's active spell had lost all thermal damage. His recorded battlefield pressure fell from 186 points to 0. Students climbed onto the benches. A fire student pushed his hand into the pale cage, screamed, then realized it was cold. His friends fell over laughing. I pressed the wooden sword between both palms. The remaining 10 units from the candle entered its point. 40 stolen units from Rurik entered its edge. Crimson light raced along the grain. The safe limit for wood was 20 units. I gave it 50. The sword smoked. I had 3 seconds before it destroyed itself. I crossed 20 paces while the arena was still shouting. The hot edge struck the black iron mannequin across Rurik's scorch mark. The wooden blade passed through armor. The cut glowed white. The mannequin's upper half crashed onto the sand, and my sword became ash. The pillar flashed once, twice, and then filled the arena with red light. 312 points, the stone lion announced. Nobody laughed. I had exceeded Rurik's best score by 126 points using a piece of wood. Then, the ranking board changed. My name rose from rank 500 to rank 200. It passed 300 students while they watched. The first year screamed my new rank. Art students chanted Color Collector, but now it sounded like a title. 2 merchants fought for permission to approach me. An examiner ordered copies of the recording. recording sent to the capital. Rurik's expensive coat had lost its glow. Its fire crystal threads had gone cold with his spell. He tried to summon another flame. A colorless spark rolled off his sleeve and landed on his boot without burning it. The crowd laughed at him. It was simple laughter. His great fire spell had become a soap bubble with anger problems. "He stole my technique," Rurik said. "The recording shows no copied spell." The senior examiner replied, "It shows your spell becoming harmless. My family supplied that pillar. Then your family purchased an excellent view of your defeat." Malden could not bury a score witnessed by 300 people and copied for the capital. Rurik's captaincy depended on fire, and his family sold fire crystals. I had made both look weak. The examiner handed me a leather purse containing 30 silver coins. That was 4 months of food if I spent carefully. The fire crystal was the size of a walnut and held 20 units of dense red. My scholarship was restored, including 7 days of meal credit and a small room in the West Building. My power, resources, and rank had all risen before breakfast. Then my left hand began to shake. The gray cracks had reached halfway to my elbow. I closed my sleeve before the crowd noticed. Alawan noticed anyway. She dragged me out through the art gate while merchants, students, and one very loud reporter followed. She shut the studio door in their faces and pushed me into a chair. "You put 50 units into wood after I watched 5 units knock you down. The result was efficient. The sword became smoke." Ash. Smoke would have been less efficient. She stared at me for 3 seconds, then laughed, despite herself. Elowen had bought breakfast with her last copper coins. She opened a paper parcel containing 2 meat pies. Their crusts were layered with butter and baked dark gold. Steam carried the smell of beef, sweet onion, black pepper, and thick brown gravy through the cold room. She broke one open. Hot juice soaked into the flaky crust, and a piece of roasted carrot fell onto the plate. I had survived death, public humiliation, and magical channel damage. The pie was still the best event of my day. We ate beside the cracked window. Elowen dipped pieces of crust into the gravy, while I held the fire crystal against my palm. I extracted its 20 units slowly, using 10 minutes instead of 2 seconds. The gray cracks stopped spreading. The crystal dissolved into clear dust. The cold voice announced that my storage had adapted to a refined color source. My capacity increased from 100 units to 120. My safe extraction rate remained 5 units each second, until I strengthened my channels. Exceeding that rate would continue to erase my own color. I now held 20 fresh units of red, 30 silver coins, 7 days of food, a room, and rank 200. That morning I had owned 7 copper coins and last place. Alawan raised half a pie in a toast. To the Academy's most dangerous decorator. I touched my pie to hers. To profitable education. Warm light filled the studio. For a few minutes, the world smelled of butter and pepper instead of hot iron. Then the red color vanished from Elowen's pie. It did not flow into me. The golden crust turned gray. The meat lost its brown surface. Steam disappeared, and the rich smell died in the air. Elowen bit a small piece and immediately spat it onto the plate. It has no taste. The green ribbon in her hair faded next. I stood so quickly that the chair fell backward. My stored red remained at 20 units. Whatever was stealing color was not using my power and was not inside the room. A map painted on the far wall began to change. Gray spread across its eastern edge. It swallowed 1 forest, 3 villages, and a river. The painted trees did not merely lose their green. Their tiny leaves curled and fell from the canvas. The cold voice spoke once. Another bearer of the Color Emperor lineage had claimed a living color. The distance was 600 miles. The amount taken was more than 1 million units. Across the wet gray paint, a handprint appeared from the other side of the wall. A man's voice whispered through it. "At last, little collector, you stole the red from fire, and now I know where you are." The gray handprint crawled off the wall before I could touch it, and every red object in the studio leaned toward the stain. Then Elowen's green ribbon lifted like a living snake and tried to tear its own color free. I caught the ribbon with my left hand. The pull came from far beyond the wall. It was stronger than Rurik's fire cage and colder than the space between stars. My stored 20 red units shook inside me, but I closed my fingers and held them. The gray handprint broke apart. Color rushed back into the room. Red returned to the pie. Alawan's ribbon became green again, but it hung against her hair like dead grass. She touched it. "It looks right. It is not right." I placed the ribbon on the table. My old talent could restore its appearance, but not the property that had vanished with the original green. The cloth no longer carried the gentle pulse of plant dye. Something 600 miles away had reached through a painting and stolen more than pigment. The cold voice confirmed one useful fact. A color I created was empty. Only color extracted from a real source carried a property. That meant I could not paint strength into the world for free. The universe had kept one hand on its purse. Someone hammered on the studio door. By order of Master Malden, open immediately. 3 Academy guards entered. Behind them came Rurik with his colorless coat folded over one arm. He had slept badly. Public defeat had placed dark circles beneath his eyes and removed the proud bird from his walk. Malden waited in the courtyard. Nearly 200 students had gathered around the morning notice board. My name stood at the top of a new accusation. Damage to Academy fire crystals. Estimated debt, 200 silver coins. Rurik lifted his pale coat. Every crystal thread in this garment is dead. 16 training crystals failed during the night. You contaminated them. His family contract required them to replace defective crystals at their own cost. If I accepted blame, Rurik saved money and erased yesterday's humiliation in one move. Show me the crystals, I said. Malden frowned. You are in no position to demand evidence. Then write that you refused inspection in front of 200 witnesses. Heads turned toward him. Eloin climbed onto the fountain rim and held up a sketch crystal. It was recording every word. Malden's jaw tightened. You have 1 hour. The Academy furnace room contained 16 dull fire crystals and 1 nervous clerk. Each crystal still held mana, but its red property was gone. I had removed 60 red units from Rurik's spell, not hundreds from a locked room. I touched the nearest crystal. The cold voice measured no trace of my mana. Instead, it found a thread of artificial gray attached to the empty color channel. The thread pointed east. Eloin saw my expression. The handprint? The same residue. Rurik heard her. Convenient. An invisible stranger stole my crystals from 600 miles away. Your invisible stranger also left a path. The gray thread ran through the floor into the cooling vault. Malden ordered the clerk to lock the door, but the witnesses had followed us. 40 students crowded the stairs. The story was already moving faster than we were. Inside the vault, frost covered the walls in thick blue plates. The cooling array had overreacted when the fire crystals failed. At its center sat a cracked ice core holding 30 units of blue. My class recognized a second property. Blue carried cold. I could extract all 30 units in 6 seconds for 15 mana points. My channels still carried gray scars, so taking it at full speed was foolish. The vault door slammed shut behind us. Rurik had pulled the emergency lever. The cooling core is unstable, he shouted through the viewing slit. If Hadeon truly controls properties, he can prove it. If not, the Academy loses 1 debt. Frost climbed my boots. Eloin's breath became white. Malden stood beside Rurik and did nothing. 40 witnesses did plenty. They shouted at the guards, struck the door, and held recording crystals against the slit. I touched the ice core and drew slowly. 5 blue units entered me during the first 2 seconds. 5 more followed. The cold inside the vault weakened with every unit, but my fingers began to lose feeling. At 15 units, the frost stopped rising. At 20, water ran down the walls. At 30, the core became clear and harmless. My storage now held 20 red units and 30 blue. The 2 colors pushed against each other inside me. Heat met cold and pain struck my chest. I separated them by instinct. Red moved into my right arm. Blue moved into my left. The pressure vanished. That was the day's hidden rule. Opposing properties could share my storage only if I kept them in different channels. Eloin touched my sleeve. Your right hand is warm. Your left is freezing. I have become a badly designed kitchen. We opened the vault from inside by heating 1 hinge with 5 red units and freezing it with 5 blue. The iron expanded, contracted, and snapped. The door fell outward at Rurik's feet. The students roared. Eloin showed the recording crystal to the senior clerk. It had captured Rurik pulling the lever and Malden refusing to stop him. The accusation on the notice board changed before noon. My debt fell from 200 silver coins to 0. Rurik received a public safety violation, and his name lost 20 ranking points. That was only the first result. The furnace clerk offered me 40 silver coins to restore the 16 empty crystals. I moved red from the Academy's waste flames into them at 5 units each. The work used 80 red units, took 2 hours, and consumed 40 mana points in 4 careful sessions. All 16 crystals reignited. The clerk tested them before 60 witnesses. The first produced 200 heat points. The 8th produced 203. The last reached 201. All were above the Academy standard of 190. Students who had laughed at my handkerchief now held broken fire stones toward me. One offered 3 silver coins to repair a cooking core. Another offered 5 for a damaged sword rune. I accepted 4 small jobs and finished them in 20 minutes, moving a total of 30 red units. That added 14 silver coins to my purse. 2 merchants began bidding for a weekly contract. Their first offers were 20 silver coins. By the time they realized the other man was serious, the price had reached 45. I refused both. My channels could not yet survive commercial work every day, and selling myself cheaply would teach them the wrong number. By lunchtime, the notice board called Color Collector a rare restoration class. A crowd copied the new description onto message crystals. My class reputation rose from worthless to commercially valuable before the ink beneath the old insult had dried. Yesterday, it had called me useless. Stone was quick to change its opinion when money was involved. I kept 30 silver coins from my prize untouched. The repair brought 40 more. I spent 12 on a narrow bed, a clay stove, 2 bowls, and enough food for 5 days. Alowan bought curtains with yellow suns painted across them. She claimed the room needed warmth that could not burn the roof. We cooked lunch together. I placed 2 red units into the stove and heated it without wood. Alowan filled a black pot with potatoes, mushrooms, onion, and strips of salted beef. The broth thickened with cream. Pepper floated on the surface, and warm bread softened beneath it until every bite carried butter and meat. I put 1 blue unit into a metal cup. The water inside became cold enough to sting my teeth. Alowan looked from the hot stove to the cold cup. Yesterday, you slept on the floor. Today, I own furniture. 1 bed. A furniture empire begins with 1 bed. She smiled and added more beef to my bowl. The calm lasted 9 minutes. An academy bell called every first-year student to the ranking court. Rurik had filed an emergency challenge. His safety violation would remove him as captain unless he defeated me in an official duel. He had chosen the water armor field, a ring filled ankle-deep with moving water. Fire weakened there. He believed that made my stolen red useless. Before the court opened, Rurik placed 50 silver coins on the judge's table. If I won, they were mine. If I lost, I had to sign an exclusive repair contract with his family for 1 year at 1 silver coin each week. The market rate had already reached 45. Rurik was not fighting only for pride. His family wanted control of the one person who could restore their failed products. He needed me poor enough to accept. Add a clause, I said. If you interfere with the field after the duel begins, I win the wager immediately. 3 independent examiners sealed the terms. Rurik agreed because refusing in public would admit that he planned to cheat. 400 students surrounded the court. The repaired fire crystals burned above them as proof of my morning work. Malden served as judge, but 3 independent examiners stood beside him after the vault incident. Rurik entered wearing silver water armor. Streams flowed over his chest and limbs. His new equipment cost more than my room, bed, and entire future furniture empire. You won yesterday because my fire remained on the field, he said. Today, you will not touch it. Agreed. He blinked. What? I will not use red. The crowd reacted at once. Students repeated my words across the benches. Wagers changed hands. Rurik's confidence returned so quickly it nearly injured him. The duel began. He crossed the ring behind a shield of water and launched 3 compressed waves. I avoided the first. The second cut my sleeve. The third struck my wooden practice blade and split it. I released 2 blue units through my boots. Thin ice formed beneath each step, letting me slide faster over the water. The crowd shouted when I passed his next wave by the width of 1 finger. Rurik changed tactics. Water needles rose around me in a ring. There were 12, each sharp enough to pierce leather. He fired them from every side. I froze 4 in the air with 3 blue units. I broke another 4 with the remains of my wooden blade. The last 4 struck my shoulder and back. My coat stopped too. The others drew blood. The board awarded Rurik 20 more attack points. He smiled. Cold tricks will not break armor, forged to resist frost. He was right. His silver plates resisted cold. The water moving across them did not. Rurik drove his shoulder into my chest. His armor threw me across the whetstone. The board gave him 60 points and me 0. His supporters shouted that yesterday had been luck. I touched the water beneath my palm. It was connected to every stream in his armor. I released 10 blue units. Ice spread across the arena in a perfect circle. It reached Rurik's boots, climbed his legs, and froze every moving plate of water at once. His shining armor became a solid statue twice his weight. He tried to step forward. The ice held. He tried to raise one arm. The frozen shoulder trapped it halfway, leaving him posed like a man asking permission to speak. 400 students stared. Then, Alowan raised her hand from the front row. The entire art faculty raised theirs with her. Yes, Captain, someone shouted. The arena collapsed into laughter. Rurik's face turned red enough to serve as an emergency fire crystal. He pushed mana into the armor, but I drew 5 blue units back out of the ice beneath his left foot. That side melted. His other side remained frozen. He tipped over slowly. The fall ended with a heavy splash and another wave of laughter. I placed my foot on his silver chest plate. The scoring board awarded 100 control points, 50 defense points, and 40 tactical points. My total reached 190. Rurik remained at 60. Malden waited until the independent examiners seniors looked at him. Winner Hadion. The ranking pillar lifted me from rank 200 to rank 140. Rurik fell below 200. His captain badge detached from his frozen coat and landed in the water. Nobody needed to explain the picture. By evening, copies of it hung in 3 dining halls. The senior examiner opened Rurik's wager box and counted 50 silver coins into my purse, while the crowd counted with him. When he reached 50, the art students cheered louder than they had for the duel. The furnace clerk publicly offered me 10 silver coins a week for only 2 hours of repair work. I accepted with a limit of 40 transferred units. That single contract paid 10 times more than Rurik's proposed agreement and required a fraction of the labor. His father's representative tore the false contract in half before leaving the court. The dual prize was 20 silver coins and a blue core containing 30 units. Absorbing the refined core increased my storage from 120 to 150 units. My safe rate rose from 5 units each second to 6. I now had 142 silver coins after expenses and repair jobs, 2 stable colors, a weekly income of 10 silver, and a place among the top 150 students. Rurik had a bucket of warm water and several hours of careful thawing. Ailawan and I returned to the studio after sunset. She painted blue snowflakes along a wooden scabbard while I moved cold into its outer surface and kept the inner edge warm. We had begun building my first weapon that would not turn to ash after one strike. A red light entered through the cracked window. It came from the ranking tower. My name had been copied onto the Capitol board 600 miles away. A gold seal appeared beside it. Ailawan recognized the crest and dropped her brush. "That belongs to Lord Quillen," she said. "He controls every official class record in the kingdom." Letters formed beneath the seal. Color Collector was declared an unregistered anomaly. I was ordered to appear before the Capitol chamber within 30 days. Until then, Academy officials were forbidden to let me leave the grounds. At the bottom, Quillen had added one private sentence in red ink. "Do not damage his hands. I need to know what they can remove." At dawn, every plant in the Academy greenhouse screamed with Ailawan's voice while she slept beside a dry paintbrush. Then a vine broke through my window, wrote my name in green sap, and died. I cut it from the wall before Ailawan woke. The vine had grown across 300 paces of stone during the night. Its roots led toward the eastern greenhouse, where alarm bells were already ringing. Gray veins covered its leaves. The healthy green had been pushed into its tip like blood fleeing a wound. I touched one leaf. The cold voice identified 4 units of green and 1 property, life. Taking all 4 units would kill the leaf. Taking the green from the entire vine would give me 30 units and leave behind dry fiber. I did not extract it. Ailawan opened one eye. "Why is a plant writing your name?" "I have become popular with several kingdoms of nature." "Is that good?" The vine released a final whisper in her voice. "Help us." "Probably not." We reached the eastern greenhouse with half the academy. Its glass dome had turned gray. 240 medicinal plants grew inside, and 180 were already withering. Their leaves curled as if invisible hands were squeezing them. Herb merchants crowded the gates. The winter harvest was worth 600 silver coins. If it died, the academy would lose medicine for 3 months. Malden stood on a wooden platform beside a public notice crystal. "The blight began after Hadion awakened an illegal class," he announced. "For the safety of the academy, he will repair this damage or accept responsibility for it." The notice crystal added a debt of 600 silver coins beneath my name. My new savings suddenly looked small. Ailawan raised her recording crystal. "Do you have evidence?" "I have timing. Rain follows breakfast every spring. Have you arrested the kitchen?" The botanical students laughed. Malden's face tightened. I studied the greenhouse wards. Their copper frames were cracked. Several maintenance plates had been replaced with painted wood. Malden controlled the combat budget and the emergency maintenance fund. He had spent heavily on Rurik's public challenges while the greenhouse decayed. If the harvest failed, an audit would find the missing silver. Blaming my class gave him a shield. "I will restore the plants," I said. "The academy will pay me 15% of the saved harvest. The inspection will remain public." Malden stepped down from the platform. "You are accused, not employed." The senior herb merchant cleared his throat. "Without Hadion, your plants will be dead by noon. My guild accepts his terms." More than 100 witnesses shouted their agreement. The notice crystal recorded the contract before Malden could stop it. I entered with Ailawan, 6 botanical students, and 3 merchants. The gray blight was not a disease. Thin threads ran from every plant toward a dead tree at the center of the dome. That tree had once been the greenhouse heart. Its roots distributed life through the soil. Now someone was using the same network to pull green away. I cut one gray thread thread with a knife. It grew back. I froze another with one blue unit. It shattered, but 3 new threads replaced it. I heated the third. Gray smoke rose, and 10 nearby leaves lost their last green at once. The crowd outside reacted to every failure. Bets appeared on the notice board. At first, only 20 people believed I could save half the harvest. After the leaves died, that number fell to 7. Malden smiled for the first time that morning. Elowen knelt beside a bed of thick iron moss. This is scheduled for removal. It steals nutrients from the herbs. The moss covered 20 square paces. It was bright green and so full of life that new shoots rose wherever her sleeve brushed it. I touched the surface. Each square pace held 5 green units. The whole patch contained 100. Taking it would kill a weed that the Academy planned to burn. The equation was simple. I drew green slowly. The moss faded from emerald to gray behind my hand. 20 units entered my right leg, then 20 more. Red occupied my right arm. Blue occupied my left. I guided green into my legs and lower body, keeping all 3 properties apart. At 60 units, warmth filled my muscles. The cuts from Rurik's water needles closed. My bruised ribs stopped hurting. That was useful and dangerous. Green did not merely heal a target. It increased whatever life already wanted to do. Flesh repaired itself. Roots grew. Mold spread. A tumor would probably celebrate. I stopped at 80 units. The remaining moss could recover. Gray cracks appeared along my ankles, warning that 3 colors were near my current limit. The botanical students had watched the moss fade and my wounds close. Their reaction reached the crowd before I stood. The bets reversed. More than 200 people now chose survival for half the harvest. Can you restore the heart tree? Elowen asked. Yes, but healing one life requires another. I placed 30 green units into the dead roots. The tree shuddered. Fresh color traveled through its bark. 1 branch unfolded, then 10. Roots pushed through the soil and caught the gray threads draining the herb beds. The tree pulled them into itself. For 3 seconds, every withered plant became green. Then the heart tree began turning gray again. Something on the other end was stronger. The cold voice measured the theft. 10 green units vanished each second. My stored supply would last 5 seconds. Find the external root, I told Elowen. She opened her paint box and mixed bright green with a drop of sap from the dead vine. Then she drew a line across the floor. The paint leaned toward the eastern drainage channel. We ran. The drain ended beneath Malden's private storage shed. Inside, we found 12 barrels of concentrated growth tonic connected to the greenhouse roots. The tonic should have entered the soil. Instead, the pipes led into sealed transport bottles carrying the Academy crest. Malden had been selling the maintenance supply. The gray blight had entered through the empty pipes he left behind. 3 merchants, 6 students, and Elowen saw the barrels. Their recording crystals captured every seal. Malden shouted from outside the glass. Those supplies were moved for security. Continue the restoration. He still controlled the gates. Exposing him would matter only if the plants survived. I used 20 green units to seal the external root with new wood. The theft stopped. 50 units remained in my body. Elowen painted green paths along the heart tree, showing where each root should grow. I followed her lines and released life in portions of 5. The tree obeyed its nature. It did not understand commands, but roots sought water and branches sought light. Her painting gave them both. One bed after another rose. Healing lilies opened white flowers. Fever fern unfolded red-veined leaves. Blue mint released a clean smell that cleared the dust from my lungs. Outside, the notice board counted restored plants aloud. 50. 100, 150. At 180, the herb merchants began cheering. At 200, the winter contract was safe. At 240, every plant in the dome stood alive. The saved harvest was valued at 620 silver coins. My 15% became 93 silver coins. Malden had to approve the payment before the entire botanical faculty. His hand shook while he pressed the seal. The notice board erased my debt and replaced it with a public contribution record. My status rose from rare support class to Academy emergency specialist. My rank moved from 140 to 112. Malden's name appeared beneath mine under investigation for missing supplies. The greenhouse should have become peaceful. A horn smashed through the storage shed. An armored root boar charged into the dome. It was a maintenance beast used to turn soil, but gray blight covered its eyes. Its body weighed more than 6 men, and one tusk broke a stone planter without slowing. The crowd outside screamed and pushed away from the glass. The boar ran toward the restored heart tree. I had 10 green units left, 20 blue, and 15 red. My mana had fallen below 1/4. Elowen threw me a dead wooden rake. "That is not a sword," I said. "Today is about plants." She painted a green spiral along its handle. I placed the last 10 green units into the wood. The rake came alive. Roots exploded from its teeth and buried themselves in the wet floor. Branches grew from the handle, following Elowen's spiral. I drove it down in front of the boar. The new branches wrapped its front legs. The beast tore through half of them. I froze the wet roots with 10 blue units. They became a solid cage around its hooves. The boar fell, slid across the floor, and stopped 1 pace from the heart tree. Its tusk pointed at my stomach. I transferred 10 red units into the metal watering pipe above us. The pipe burst. Warm irrigation water struck the boar and washed gray slime from its eyes. The creature blinked at me, snorted, and became very aware that 200 people were watching it lie inside a frozen bush. It stopped fighting. The botanical students cheered. One climbed onto the boar and raised the academy flag. The herb merchants demanded that the victory be added to my contribution score. The ranking board granted 40 control points. My rank rose again from 112 to 98. I had entered the top 100. The ranking tower announced the change across all 4 faculties. Students left their lessons to see the restored dome. A combat instructor who had called my class decorative asked whether I could protect his winter orchard. 3 healers requested a demonstration of green transfer. The academy newspaper changed its planned headline from Dangerous Anomaly to The Student Who Saved 600 Silver in 1 Morning. Elowen bought the first copy and crossed out the word student. Above it, she painted Color Collector in green. The heart tree released 1 round seed after the final plant recovered. The herb merchants valued it at 50 silver coins, but Academy law awarded it to the person who restored the tree. It contained 30 refined green units. I absorbed the seed over 15 minutes. My storage expanded from 150 units to 180. I could safely reserve 60 units for red, 60 for blue, and 60 for green as long as each remained in a separate channel. My extraction rate stayed at 6 units each second. The new strength gave me more room, not tougher veins. The gray scars around my ankles proved the difference. Power was a larger cart. My body was still the same narrow bridge. Malden entered the greenhouse with 4 guards. His coat was clean, his voice calm, and his eyes fixed on the recording crystals. "The emergency is over," he said. "Confiscate all evidence until the official investigation." The senior herb merchant stepped between him and Elowen. "The guild owns 3 copies. The academy has jurisdiction. Not over commercial fraud." Malden reached for a recording crystal. I touched the red ceremonial cord on his sleeve and removed its warmth. Then I placed 5 green units from the recovering heart tree into the dead vine wreath above the doorway. The wreath woke. Vines dropped around Malden's arms, waist, and boots. He tried to burn them, but his colorless sleeve produced only a pale spark. The plants lifted him 1 pace above the floor. A ripe yellow seed pod swung from the wreath and burst against his chest. Thick fertilizer covered his metals. The root boar smelled it. It stood, walked calmly to Malden, and licked his face from chin to forehead. The dome shook with laughter. 6 recording crystals captured the moment. The merchant promised a copy to every guild office in the capital. "Put me down," Malden said through clenched teeth. "The plants are conducting an inspection," I replied. His missing barrels, false accusation, and interference were entered into the public record. He remained head of the combat faculty because his patrons delayed suspension, but he lost control of the greenhouse fund and all authority over my scholarship. The Herb Guild paid my 93 silver coins before sunset. They added a standing contract of 15 silver coins for every diseased bed I restored. I spent 30 on 3 crystal-lined pigment jars for Elowen's workshop. Each jar could hold 20 units outside my body for 1 day. That increased my practical reserve without strengthening my channels. It also meant Elowen could prepare a color before a fight. My remaining money reached 205 silver coins. We ate dinner on the greenhouse roof between warm glass panels. The merchants had sent a basket of fresh produce. Elowen sliced red tomatoes over thick noodles and fried them with garlic, green basil, and strips of beef. A soft egg broke over each bowl. Its golden center coated the noodles, and sharp cheese melted into the hot sauce. Below us, students retold the story of Malden and the root boar. Each version made the tongue longer. Elowen leaned against my shoulder. "You saved every plant. The weeds paid the cost. You stopped before killing them. Dead suppliers cannot provide a second shipment." She laughed softly. For a moment, the glass roof held only moonlight, warm food, and the sound of leaves moving below. Then all 240 plants turned east. Their stems bent together, their leaves pressed against the glass like open hands. The restored heart tree spoke with a man's voice from the gray map. "You found green faster than I expected." I stood. Elowen's 3 new jars cracked at the same time. "Who are you?" I asked. The tree's bark split into the shape of a smiling mouth. "I was the first color emperor. My name is Amon." Every plant I had healed lost 1 green vein. The stolen life flowed east in a bright line across the night sky. Amon laughed through thousands of leaves. Thank you for repairing my road. My shadow turned red at sunrise and began burning holes in the floor, although no light touched it. Then every flame in the academy bent east as if Amon had become a second sun. I stepped away from the burning shadow. It followed. Elawan threw a white canvas over it. Red spread through the cloth, but the heat remained below. The shadow was not real fire. It was a mark tied to the 60 green units I had moved through the heart tree. Amon had traced my color channels through the life I restored. The cold voice offered no new skill. It gave me the same rule from a worse angle. A transferred property kept a thread to its source until the new color settled. If another color emperor touched that thread, he could follow it. Every victory could become a road back to me. Elawan painted a white ring around the shadow. White pigment carried no cleansing property, but it hid the red mark long enough for me to extract 10 contaminated units. I sealed them inside a black glass bottle and buried it beneath the furnace room. The shadow vanished. My remaining green was clean, but the 3 pigment jars from the greenhouse had cracked. I paid 24 silver coins for replacements and another 60 for a steel practice sword with 3 narrow channels along its blade. The sword was not enchanted. It was simply built to keep colors apart. Each channel held 20 units. With my body's capacity of 180 and the 3 jars, I could prepare for a fight with up to 300 units. My mana still decided how much I could move. That limit mattered because the Academy tournament began in 2 hours. The tournament selected 3 students for the Royal Exhibition in the capital. First place paid 250 silver coins. More important, a royal contestant could not be detained under Quillen's anomaly order until the exhibition ended. Winning would buy me money, status, and legal time. Malden had changed the entry requirement overnight. Only students ranked in the top 100 could compete. My rank was 98. He had missed by 2 places. The registration court contained 800 students, teachers, merchants, and guests. Copies of the greenhouse recording had spread through the city. When I entered, half the crowd shouted "Color Collector." The other half watched my hands. Malden stood beneath the tournament banner. The root boar incident had stripped him of financial authority, but his patrons had delayed formal suspension. He still controlled the brackets and safety wards. "Hadian," he said into the announcement crystal, "because your class remains unregistered, every opponent may demand a full power match." The crowd murmured. Normal tournament spells were limited to 1/3 power. Full power turned sport into a funeral with applause. "Does the same rule apply to me?" I asked. Malden hesitated. "Of course. Record that." 700 witnesses raised recording crystals. Malden's answer entered the official rules. The first 2 rounds ended before noon. My first opponent used a stone hammer. I removed 20 blue units from a prepared jar and placed them beneath his boots before the match. When he charged, the floor froze. His hammer carried him forward while his feet remained behind. He crossed the ring on his stomach and stopped beneath the judges' table. The board awarded me 80 control points and a victory in 12 seconds. My second opponent filled the field with cutting wind. Wind had no visible color I could grasp, so I used the green stored in my sword's grip. 20 units strengthened my legs and closed shallow cuts as they formed. I reached him after 31 seconds and placed the cold flat of my blade against his neck. 2 victories moved my rank from 98 to 54. The board listed my tournament odds at 1 chance in 9. Malden's expression looked like spoiled milk. Between rounds, Elawan pulled me into the West preparation room. She had brought lunch in a covered basket, flatbread wrapped roasted chicken, red peppers, melted white cheese, and onions browned in butter. Hot juice ran over my fingers. She added a spoon of sharp green sauce that smelled of herbs and garlic. "Eat slowly," she said. I finished the first wrap in 6 bites. That was not slowly. It was slower than 5. She wiped sauce from my thumb and inspected the gray scars on my palm. They had faded since the greenhouse, but not disappeared. "Your next opponent is Sable." I knew the name. Everyone did. Sable ranked 7th. Her family carried the Crimson Heart, a hereditary flame that grew hotter whenever its owner was injured. She had never lost an academy duel. At full power, her firestorm covered the entire arena. She entered the preparation room without knocking. Her hair was black, her coat plain, and red light pulsed beneath the skin over her heart. "You made Rurik's fire harmless," she said. "Yes. Do that to mine." Elawan lowered the lunch basket. "You came here to request defeat?" Sable's jaw tightened. "My flame has burned inside my chest since I was 6. Every year it becomes stronger. The healers say I will not reach 30. If his class can separate heat from fire, I need proof." She was not arrogant for entertainment. She needed an answer and knew only one way to demand it. "How much red does your storm contain?" I asked. 60 units at the core. More fire grows from mana after release, but the property comes from those 60. Exactly the maximum my red channel could hold. Taking it would cost 30 mana points. I would have none left to transfer the red again. Use full power, I said. Sable nodded once. If you fail, surrender before it reaches you. If I fail, surrender will be very warm. She left without smiling. Elowen watched the door. I like her, she said, from a safe distance. The semi-final drew every person in the academy. Spectators filled the stone seats, roofs, and bridges. The city guilds projected the arena onto 3 public screens. More than 2,000 people watched. Malden inspected the safety barrier himself. I noticed that 3 red ward stones were dark. He had disabled 1/4 of the barrier. Sable's full storm would spill into the lower seats if I failed. Malden was willing to burn spectators to make my class look dangerous. I pointed at the stones. The western ward is inactive. An illusion caused by your unstable magic, Malden announced. Begin. The crowd heard him. The independent judges exchanged looks but could not stop a match after the signal without proof. Sable raised one hand. The sky became red. Flame formed above the arena in a rotating disc. It grew from 10 paces across to 50. Heat cracked the floor. The remaining barrier screamed under pressure. Students in the lower seats covered their faces. The scoring pillar measured 600 projected damage points. Rurik's best attack had scored 186. Sable lowered her hand. The firestorm fell. I released 20 prepared blue units from my sword into the floor around me. A wall of ice rose, then exploded into steam when the first flame touched it. That bought 2 seconds. I reached through the steam and touched the red core. Take the red. The first 6 units entered my arm. Pain reached my shoulder. 12 units. The disc lost its dark center. 18. Gray cracks opened across my wrist. The storm pressed me to one knee. Heat burned through my coat. I kept my hand inside the core and drew at my safe rate of 6 units each second. 30 units. Half the storm became transparent. The crowd saw a clear line divide the sky. The western barrier failed. Colorless flames spilled over the lower seats. Hundreds of spectators screamed and ducked. It passed through them like a strong breeze. Nobody burned. Their fear became silence. Their silence became shouting. 42 units. The arena floor stopped melting. 48. Sable stared at her raised hand. Her fire was still moving, but its red was draining into me. 54. My fingers turned gray. 60. The entire firestorm lost its color. It struck the arena without heat. Transparent flame rolled across stone, spectators, judges, and tournament banners. It lifted hair and coats. It did not leave one burn. For 3 heartbeats, 2,000 people said nothing. Then the scoring pillar announced 0 thermal damage. The sound that followed shook dust from the academy towers. Students shouted my name. Merchants stood on their chairs. The spectators in the failed western section pointed at Malden and demanded his arrest. Every public screen replayed the moment when his barrier went dark and the harmless storm passed through it. Sable remained in the center of the field. Pale fire moved around her arms. My heart, she whispered. It does not hurt. The red pulse beneath her skin had disappeared. I had no mana left, and my red channel held all 60 units. My prepared sword still carried 20 green in its grip and 10 blue along its edge. Sable attacked without flame. She was still rank 7. Her first punch cracked my ribs. Her second split my lip. I blocked the third with the blue edge. Frost covered her glove. She drove a knee into my stomach and sent me backward. The board gave her 100 physical points. I had only the control score from neutralizing the storm. I released the green stored in the grip. 20 units entered my hands and chest. My ribs pulled together. Air returned to my lungs. Sable saw the color fade from the handle. 3 properties. 3 so far. I froze the stone beneath her forward foot with the last 10 blue units. She slipped by half a step. That was all I needed. The flat of my sword struck her wrist, shoulder, and knee. 3 clean hits. She fell, rolled, and stopped with my blade against her throat. The pillar awarded me 240 control points, 90 tactical points, and 60 physical points. My total reached 390. Sable had 100. Malden did not announce the result. The crowd began counting. 1, 2, 3. At 10, the independent judges activated the announcement crystal themselves. Winner Hadian. 2,000 witnesses repeated it. Sable stood and raised my gray left hand. The audience became even louder. Her gesture turned defeat into testimony. The Academy's strongest fire student had confirmed that I removed heat instead of blocking it. My rank rose from 54 to 21. My tournament odds changed from 1 chance in 9 to first place favorite. The board added a new public title beneath my class. Property Thief Candidate. The title spread through the city message network before I left the sand. Weapon shops changed their signs to advertise color-safe steel. 3 noble houses offered sponsorships of 50 silver coins each. I refused contracts that gave them ownership of future colors, but accepted a one-time equipment grant of 20 silver from the Herb Guild with no conditions. The same people who had watched my rank fall to 500 now argued over which faculty deserved credit for training me. The art students answered by hanging a pink uniform from the combat tower. Rurik's name was written across its back. Malden tried to leave through the judge's tunnel. Tournament guards blocked him. The recordings proved that he disabled the Western Ward. His authority over the remaining matches was suspended before the full arena. The senior judge removed Malden's gold tournament sash and handed it to an assistant. A spectator threw a bucket of cooling water. It missed Malden, but soaked Rurik, who had been standing behind him. The arena laughed at both of them. The final match was postponed until the next morning while officials inspected every ward. Under tournament law, I received the semifinal prize of 100 silver coins and a royal contestant badge. That badge suspended Quillen's detention order for 7 days. Sable met us in the medical room. Her fire remained colorless. She placed one hand over her silent heart. "Return the red," she said. I examined the 60 units inside my arm. A thin thread ran from them back into her chest. Each minute, the red remained separated. Her body gained one fraction of life. Returning, it would restore both her heat and the process killing her. "Your flame and your life are tied together," I said. "I can return it now, but the burning will continue." "How long can you hold it?" "1 day before the color settles permanently. Longer than that, and your flame may never carry heat again?" Sable looked at the pale spark above her palm. "Keep it until tomorrow." There was no romance in her eyes, only relief and fear. Alawan wrapped my gray hand while Sable ate with us in the studio. We made a thick chicken soup with noodles, carrots, celery, and small dumplings filled with herbs. Sable added so much pepper that the broth became a weapon. Without her inner fire, she was cold for the first time in her life and held the hot bowl with both hands. "I used to hate soup," she said. "Your judgment was damaged by heat," Alawan replied. Sable almost smiled. The tournament board announced my final reward in advance. Victory tomorrow would pay another 150 silver coins, a refined prism core, and rank within the Academy's top 10. My current money had reached 317 silver coins after equipment and jar costs. My strength had gained control of Sable's 60-unit red. My status had risen to Royal Contestant and rank 21. The price appeared when I removed the bandage. My left hand was completely gray. I could not feel Eloin's fingers against it. The cracks had reached my elbow and were moving upward. The cold voice warned that extracting any red before my channels healed would erase the property of my arm. One more fire spell could leave it dead forever. The floor trembled beneath us. Something struck the locked arena gate below the studio. Once, twice. On the third impact, black light leaked through the cracks and every candle in the room went out. A beast on the other side spoke my name with Malden's voice. The black light beneath the arena gate ate the white paint from Eloin's walls before I could stand. Then my gray left arm moved by itself, pointed at the locked door, and wrote Malden's name in frost. I caught my wrist with my right hand. The arm stopped moving. Sensation did not return. Sable extinguished her pale flame and listened. Something heavy scraped against stone below us. Malden's voice repeated my name, but the rhythm was wrong. It sounded recorded. Ilawan pressed a page against my gray skin. Black lines appeared on the paper, forming the outline of a collar. "A curse is pulling your arm," she said. The cold voice identified the new property from a distance. Black carried curses. The creature below wore 40 units of black. Its curse had found the weakest color channel nearby and tried to command it. My damaged arm had answered like an empty puppet. The tournament final was scheduled for sunrise. Malden had placed the beast there before losing authority. Sable reached for the door. "We should kill it now." 800 witnesses saw Malden change the rules. Tomorrow, 3,000 will see what he placed behind that gate. It may kill you before they understand. Then we should improve the explanation. Alawan spread her paints across the table. We had 5 hours. My first problem was the gray arm. Green life could repair its damaged channels, but uncontrolled growth might strengthen the same damage. Blue cold could slow the erasure, but too much would stop circulation. We tested 1 unit at a time. Alawan painted narrow blue bands around my wrist. I transferred 5 blue units into the marked skin. The gray stopped spreading. Then I added 5 green units between the bands. Warm pain returned to 1 finger. We repeated the cycle 3 times. 15 blue units controlled the damage. 15 green rebuilt the tissue. After 30 minutes, I could move all 5 fingers. My touch remained weak, and the red channel in that arm was closed. The cold voice gave a clear price. If red entered the arm before the next sunset, the repaired channels would collapse permanently. I could use blue, green, and perhaps black. I I could not use heat. The second problem was Sable's stolen red. 60 units remained inside me, linked to her heart. The settling period would end at noon. Returning them would restart the fire that shortened her life. Keeping them would make her colorless flame permanent. Sable sat beside the stove with pale fire floating above her palm. "Put the red into your sword," she said. "Once it settles there, your flame may never recover its heat. Yesterday I believed strength was the number of people my storm could burn. Today I ate hot soup without pain in my chest." She closed her hand around the colorless flame. "Keep the heat. I will build something else." It was her choice, not my victory. I moved the 60 red units into the deepest channel of my steel sword. The transfer consumed 30 mana points and took 12 minutes. Crimson lines appeared beneath the metal, but Elowin sealed them with black glass lacquer. The sword now carried Sable's heat. I could not activate it safely, so I wrapped the hilt in white cloth and locked the red channel. Sable's flame remained transparent. The red pulse did not return to her heart. Her projected life, measured by the Academy Healing Stone, rose from 11 years to more than 40. She read the number twice. Then she turned away and wiped her eyes with her sleeve. Elowin pretended to be busy with breakfast. She cooked rice porridge until it became thick and smooth, then added butter, strips of smoked meat, green onion, and soft eggs. The yellow centers broke into the hot rice. Fried buns sat beside the bowls, crisp outside and filled with peppered beef. Sable ate 3. "Your colorless fire still produces light," I said. "Light has uses. Such as finding a fourth bun." Elowin moved the basket away from her. "Some powers require discipline. For 1 quiet hour, we prepared like ordinary students." Elowin packed 2 jars with 20 blue units each and 1 with 20 green. Sable tested fighting with force from her pale flame. It created pressure without heat, enough to push a chair across the room. At sunrise, the royal tournament bell rang. 3,000 spectators surrounded the final arena. Guild screens carried the event across the city. The western barrier had been repaired under public inspection. 7 independent judges stood beside the scoring pillar. Malden occupied the front witness seat between 2 guards. He was suspended, not arrested. Lord Quillen's capital seal had arrived before dawn, ordering the Academy to preserve Malden's testimony until a royal investigator arrived. Quillen wanted both of us available. The senior judge explained the final. I would face 1 Academy beast for 10 minutes. Control, survival, and damage would determine the score. The creature registered the previous evening was a bronze training bull worth 200 points. The gate opened. A black iron chimera stepped into the light. It had the body of a lion, the shoulders of a bull, and a serpent tail wrapped in iron rings. Black armor covered its face. A curse collar dug into its neck. The scoring pillar measured 600 combat points, 3 times the registered level. The audience erupted. Judges demanded the gate be closed. The chimera struck it once and tore it from the wall. Malden rose. I konstitsan sanzipenova I faust tolairo power sporins. Yesterday and day. Saturn the replacement is legal. He had a document bearing his seal. He had prepared the swap before his suspension. If he admitted it was illegal, the document proved sabotage. If he called it legal, the public match continued. He wanted the chimera to force red through my damaged hand. Quillen would receive a living anomaly with no useful arm, and Malden would trade my injury for protection in the audit. It was ugly, but it was a motive. "I accept the beast," I said. The crowd shouted against it. I raised my repaired hand so that recording crystals could see. "I will not use red." Silence spread from the front seats outward. Malden laughed. "Then your miracle class ends here." The bell rang. The chimera crossed 30 paces in 2 seconds. I released 10 blue units through my boots and slid aside. 1 horn missed my chest and struck the floor. Stone exploded. The serpent tail caught my back and threw me into the barrier. The board awarded the beast 100 attack points. My left arm went numb again. The chimera turned. Black light flashed from its collar, and Malden's recorded voice spoke. "Destroy Hadion's hands." The beast ignored my chest and aimed both horns at my arms. 3,000 witnesses heard the order. Malden's face lost color. The senior judge seized his document. A hidden command rune inside the seal matched the collar. The evidence was public, but the chimera was still charging. I opened the first blue jar. 20 units entered the arena floor. Ice covered the beast's front legs. It shattered the frozen layer without stopping, but its speed fell by 1/3. I drew my steel sword without opening the red channel. 20 green units waited inside the grip. I released 5 into my legs and met the charge. The sword struck 1 horn. Without heat, the steel did not cut it. The impact dislocated my shoulder. I used 5 green units to pull the joint back into place. Pain became a hot line down my side. The board gave me 20 survival points. Spectators began chanting the count. 9 minutes remained. I needed to touch the collar for 7 seconds. 40 black units at my safe rate of 6 each second would take slightly more than 6. The curse would enter an empty channel and seek a target immediately. If I held it too long, that target would be me. I froze the serpent tail with the second blue jar. The chimera tore free after 3 seconds, but Eloan had expected that. Blue paint from the broken ice marked every joint in its armor. I touched the nearest mark with my blade and pulled 5 blue units back. Cold moved through the connected paint, locking all 4 knees for 1 breath. I jumped onto its back. The audience stood. The chimera bucked hard enough to lift me above its shoulders. I wrapped my gray left arm through the collar and held on. Take the black. 6 units entered me during the first second. The curse whispered Malden's command inside my bones. 12 units. My left hand tightened around my own throat. I forced it back onto the collar. 18. The black armor over the chimera's face began to fade. 24. The serpent tail struck my ribs. 1 broke. 30. The collar lost Malden's voice. The chimera's eyes changed from black to gold. 36. My repaired channels cracked again. 40. The curse collar became clear iron. The chimera stopped fighting. I fell from its back and hit the sand. 40 black units moved inside my arm like insects. The command needed a new home within 10 seconds. Malden wore a gold ceremonial sword at his belt. The same black command rune hid beneath its handle. He had used the sword to program the collar. 9 seconds. I ran toward the witness seats. 8. The guards drew weapons. 7. Sable released a wave of colorless force. It pushed them aside without burning anyone. 6. Malden grabbed his sword. 5. I touched its black handle with the flat of my blade. 4. I transferred all 40 units. The curse entered Malden's weapon. His own recorded voice rang from the blade. Destroy Hadion's hands. The sword tore itself from Malden's grip and flew toward me. I raised my hands, then stepped behind him. The weapon changed direction. Malden ran along the front row. His metals bounced. The sword followed his command and cut every glove from his belt while trying to reach my hands behind him. He jumped over the judge's table. The blade cut his gold sash. His trousers began to fall. Malden caught them with both hands and kept running while 3,000 people laughed. The sword finally pinned his coat to the public accusation board. Malden hung 1 pace above the ground, holding his trousers with both hands beneath a list of his missing greenhouse funds. The root boar's keeper stood in the crowd. The plants have finished their inspection, he shouted. Now the sword is checking him. The laughter became thunder. More important, the black rune on the sword matched the collar before every recording crystal. The senior judge read Malden's mana signature aloud. He had ordered the chimera to destroy my hands and falsified its registration. Quillen's preservation seal did not protect an official caught committing a new crime. The royal guards arrested Malden in front of the ranking board. Rurik tried to leave with him, but the furnace clerk handed the guards copies of the vault recording. They took Rurik for questioning about the cooling chamber. The live screens showed both men crossing the arena in restraints. Students who once laughed at my falling name now counted Malden's removed medals. The chimera walked to me and lowered its head. Without the black curse, it was an old royal guardian. It had been missing from the capital reserve for 2 years. Freeing it granted 400 control points. Surviving its attacks added 100. Exposing the illegal command added another 100. My final score reached 600. The Stone Lion announced me as tournament champion. My rank rose from 21 to 8. The royal contestant badge changed from bronze to gold. The academy registered my class as a strategic property class, removing the word anomaly from its local records. Quillen still controlled the capital record, but he could no longer claim that no evidence existed. The crowd repeated my new title. Proper Furik Thief. I accepted it. Color Emperor remained a secret between the system, Amon, Eloan, and me. The tournament paid the remaining 150 silver coins. The Herb Guild added 50 for exposing the theft of its guardian beast. Malden's seized fund returned 100 silver coins of compensation to my scholarship account. My money rose from 317 silver coins to 617. The academy granted me permanent use of the West Art Building, including the studio, kitchen, and small garden. Eloan received official funding of 20 silver coins each month to develop property-safe pigments. The refined prism core was the best reward. It contained no property of its own. Absorbing it widened all my channels without adding color. My storage increased from 180 units to 240. My safe extraction rate rose from 6 units each second to 8. I had unlocked red, blue, green, and black. I could not safely use red until sunset, and black curses could not remain inside me longer than 10 seconds. More colors meant more ways to win and more ways to erase myself. The world saw champion, Elawan saw the bandage on my hand. That evening, she locked the studio doors and served a victory dinner for 3. Sable brought roast duck from the fire faculty kitchen. Its skin was crisp and glazed with honey. Elawan made potatoes with butter and herbs, dark bread with melted cheese, and a thick mushroom sauce. We poured cold berry juice from a cup carrying 1 blue unit. Sable tested her pale flame beneath the duck. It produced pressure but no heat. The skin lifted from the plate and landed in my bowl. "Your new magic steals food," I said. "I'm building something else." Elawan pointed her fork at her. "Build it over your own plate." We laughed. Outside, students filled the courtyard with harmless, transparent flames in imitation of Sable's storm. For 1 hour, the academy felt like a home instead of an arena. Someone knocked 3 times. A young man in a travel-stained gray coat stood outside. His hair, skin, and eyes all had color, but the coin in his hand did not. It was a royal coin turned completely gray. He placed it on the table. The metal bent beneath its own weight. It had lost not only color, but strength. "My name is Jarek," he said. "I am Prince of the Kingdom east of your academy." Elawan looked at the wall map. "The kingdom, 600 miles away." Jarek nodded. 3 years ago, Amon stole the green from our western province. Last month, he took the blue from our rivers. Today, he took the red from every hearth in the capital. The map behind him began turning gray. 1 forest vanished, then 3 villages, then the river Elawan had painted. The gray region did not stop at Jarek's border. It crossed into our kingdom and spread toward the academy. The cold voice measured the loss. 10 million green units had disappeared. 5 million people were inside the fading area. The edge advanced 1 mile each hour. Jarek looked at my 4 colored channels and spoke quietly. "Amon is not gathering colors anymore. He is erasing the road between himself and you." On the wall, the first gray hand reached across the academy boundary.